Find out what's making you sick and how to heal. Anthony William is the medical medium.
Hello, I'm Anthony William. Today we're talking about adrenal fatigue. When it comes down to adrenal fatigue, let's go into it. So here's something about adrenal fatigue that we have to understand about. It takes a lot of adrenal weakness or adrenal reserves that have been lost to create noticeable adrenal fatigue, to create real noticeable adrenal fatigue. And even if the adrenals are that problematic, that underactive, that overactive and that underactive, it still takes a lot to get symptoms. They do exist. Adrenal fatigue exists. It's a problem, without a doubt. But what's really happening now is we're getting neurological fatigue. That's what's been raging as an epidemic. Nervous system, neurological fatigue. And it has something to do with the adrenals, but it also has everything to do with viruses. Okay, so neurological fatigue. So let's start out with regular fatigue, adrenal fatigue. Okay, you've been hit with some bad news. Your adrenals rush. You shake. You're shaking. I know people that they're just shaking, and they can't stop shaking. And and I know people that, and you guys might know them too. Okay, and you might be one of them. You get some bad news, and you're shaking and tremoring, and the bad news wasn't even that bad. But you have a little bit of PTSD, and when you have a little bit of PTSD, you can literally just, the least amount of bad news, you could just start shaking, and the adrenals trigger off. Now, that's, when we have that in our life, or we're under a lot of stress, or we're being pushed too far, or we're not eating right, and we're not taking care of ourselves, and we're getting news, and we're getting, we got divorces, and you lose a loved one, and you're taking care of a sick loved one, and, you're worried about your children, and all these different things. It can wear on the adrenals, without a doubt. Or you're just someone who parties. Just wine every night, or, alcohol. Or, you stay up too late, and you don't sleep good. And you get bad news. And you're going through a divorce. And something like that. And then what happens is that, you can get the shakes, or you can get a little tiredness, you can get a little weakness, you can get a lot of different symptoms. You can get a little bit of insomnia if the adrenals are pretty weakened, or overreactive, or constantly underreactive, or going back and forth, because that's what they do. They go back and forth, overreactive, underreactive. And you can get thirst, where you feel always like an insatiable thirst. And you can feel lightheaded, a little bit of lightheaded. You can feel revved up when you're about to go to bed. So you're tired all day long, and you're pushing through at work all day long. At the end of the day, at night, bam, you're like ready to go out partying. And now you can't kind of get to sleep. You're charging up at 9 o'clock at night, charging up at 9:30 at night. That's a sign of adrenal fatigue. Or you wake up in the morning and you're just not rested. You're like, oh man, I just don't feel like rested. I feel like crap. That's when your cortisol's like spiking, or your adrenals have been fluctuating up and down, or they've been just slightly draining. And then you wake up in the morning and you're not even rested. Okay? Or wake up in the morning, you feel good, and then you're crashing at 11 o'clock in the morning. You're like, okay, going down. Gonna need coffee, gonna need candy bar, gonna need something. And that's at 11 o'clock in the morning. Or, after lunch. Your crash time's after lunch. Maybe it's at 2 o'clock, maybe it's at 3 o'clock, maybe it's at 1:30, and you're crashing in the afternoon. Okay, because that could be a possibility too. Or maybe you get through the day, and you come home and you're just trashed. Just totally trashed, like shattered. And you walk the door and like, oh my God, I gotta just eat dinner and just gotta sit on the couch. I gotta just be on the couch. That's also a sign. Okay, so there's a lot of different signs of adrenal fatigue, without a doubt. Okay, but we don't get our symptoms so much from our adrenals weakening like they do. Even though they weaken, even though they go through a lot, if we've been through a lot, something emotional, if we've been hit hard, if we got a struggle, if we got losses, they get hit hard, those adrenals. And some of the symptoms we can get from that because of the adrenaline that's been flooding in our system or rising up, that adrenaline, that epinephrine, that those hormones, because of that, it can hit the nervous system and it could hit the liver. The adrenaline does more damage from the adrenals than the adrenals being weak. We get more symptoms from the adrenaline instead of just the adrenals being weak. That's what happens. You understand? So it's like, because I know it sounds kind of different, but hear me out. So if you're somebody that's like, well, I don't understand. If you have weak adrenals, you have weak adrenals. No, what happens is, if you have weak adrenals, it doesn't mean you're going to get a whole bunch of bad symptoms. They could come after you've had so many adrenal issues. And that's a confusion out there. That's why people tend to not recover from their adrenal fatigue, and the alternative practitioners throwing all kinds of stuff at them. Like, take all these herbs to get that rhodiola in you, get that ashwagandha in you, get that, holy basil in you, get you name it, get all those different supplements in you, and, you're not really quite getting there. And yes, there's an adrenal weakness without a doubt, and it could partially come up on blood tests and different tests at the doctor's office. Nowadays, we're working better with that. But if your adrenals have been pumping too long, too hard, too many different circumstances, you've been through too much, then it's the adrenaline that's burning out neurotransmitters. Dopamine. Just annihilating dopamine and knocking out neurotransmitters. And that's where the sleep problem starts to occur with adrenal fatigue. That's when other things start happening. Like, you ready? That's when your liver can't handle the load of oversaturation from your epinephrine, your adrenals flooding all the time from all that bad news. As those adrenals are flooding, it's soaking up into the liver, because the liver gets pickled by adrenaline. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. You're only going to hear it here. And that's what spirit does. And that's what the liver does with adrenaline. So what we start experiencing is we start getting some weight around the waist. Well, that weight around the waist isn't really from the adrenal problems, the adrenal fatigue. That weight around the waist is from the liver being saturated, being taken over and saturated by adrenaline. And then the sleep problem is the neurotransmitters burning out, because adrenaline is corrosive. And here's the deal. There's 56 different blends of adrenaline. And that information you're only going to hear straight here, just to right here. And 56 blends of adrenaline. This is adrenaline that's undiscovered by research and science, because research and science just thinks we have basically two hormones shooting out of the adrenal, and that's it. With maybe with a little bit of hormones in meaning a little bit of reproductive hormones in there. Research and science does know that. So what happens is there's 56 different blends. If you're in the shower, your adrenals are running while you're in the shower. And they're doing something in the shower. There's a blend for when we bathe. There's a blend for when we go to bathroom and eliminate. So during elimination, there's a blend when we urinate. There's adrenal hormones that go together and blend and make a specific identical, blend, a bioidentical blend for just when you pee. And then when you get handed bad news, there's a whole new blend. That's the destructive blend. That's the fight or flight. That's the tragic blend that goes through our system and just burns us up when we're handed bad news. And when we're in love, that's a different blend. When we're brokenhearted, whole different blend. When we're exercising, whole different blend. When we're dreaming, the adrenals are shooting out a different blend. This is not known by anywhere, alternative or conventional medicine. So these different blends rush through the body for all the different things that you do. When you drive a car, it's a different blend of adrenaline. It's not just the same thing. And like I said, when you exercise, when you jump into a swimming pool, it's a different blend. So when you're swimming, it's a different blend. And so when you're playing a sport, entirely different blend. And this is what the adrenals do. This is how complex they are to such a degree, and we're so behind in research and science. Now, I'm going to tell you something. One person can be so fatigued, chronically fatigued, not even be able to function, not even be able to get out of bed, and their adrenals could be in better shape than someone who's eating chocolate cake, playing tennis, and drinking a martini on the same day. Feeling great. Feeling unbelievably great, you guys. So a person playing tennis at the country club, drinking martinis or margaritas, and then literally eating some cake or some kind of sweet treat or a scone or something, and, staying up late that night, maybe going out dancing afterwards, and their adrenals could be in worse shape, more fatigued than the person who can't even get out of bed. The person who can't get out of bed has better adrenals. And this is a mistake in alternative medicine right now. Okay? This is a great mistake. Because what this means is the person laying in bed has neurological fatigue. Neurological fatigue. They have a viral condition. Epstein-Barr virus, keeping them with chronic fatigue syndrome, but their adrenals are still better off than the person having a blast, playing tennis, eating chocolate cake, drinking, martinis, going out dancing that night. And this is one of the greatest holes, the black hole that's involved in alternative and conventional medicine right now. We're not even near that, not even near figuring that one out yet. So instead, we would say, this person, laying in bed has severe chronic, adrenal fatigue. Let's give them, steroids. Well, the steroids help with, they help, that's all they do. They might help pick somebody out of bed because it's a steroid for basically a chronic illness. Any steroid you use for chronic illness, you pick somebody up for a little bit. But that doesn't mean they have severe adrenal fatigue. This is one of the mistakes. Neurological fatigue is inflammation of the nervous system and brain from neurotoxins associated with Epstein-Barr or a virus that's herpetic or in the herpes family. And yes, you can still have some adrenal fatigue with it, which doesn't help at all. You can still have adrenal fatigue, which can add to 5% of it, without a doubt, or 10% of it, without a doubt. But see, here's how it works. If someone's living their life and they're, going to work and they're just feeling a little tired and all of a sudden they crash completely and get really fatigued and sick and can't function and have to call in sick and it lasts for months, adrenals don't give out in one day. They don't give out in one day to put someone from point A to point Z. They can't do that. They can't do that. So that's a viral infection right there. But then all of a sudden they go to different doctors. They're like, that's your adrenals they gave out. They can't give out like that. You have a viral infection. That's neurological fatigue. It's from neurotoxins produced by the virus saturating the body. And then also the adrenal fatigue symptoms I was talking about, that's not neurological fatigue, that's not neurofatigue. Those symptoms are real. I mentioned them all, and that's adrenals. And I want to make sure people are taking care of themselves and rebuilding their adrenals so they don't feel like they're waking up at 9 o'clock at night. So they don't get neurotransmitter burnout from adrenaline running all the time. So they don't get liver dysfunction and stagnicity, so you start gaining a little bit of weight. So you don't have all the, thirst, overwhelming thirst. All of that, and a little bit of tiredness and fatigue. You can have a little bit of tiredness, fatigue with adrenals. We don't want any of that. We have to protect, the adrenals and take care of them. So A, they don't cause more damage, cause more problems, the adrenaline, and we don't get too burned out. Now, in the case of real adrenal problems, there is a group of people that do have some serious adrenal fatigue. They've been through too much trauma, too long, and the adrenals did not recoup. And yes, that could be a fatigue, but most everybody is getting now the viral infection, neurological fatigue. Most everybody. So adrenal fatigue, and adrenals going up and down can knock hair off a head. Can knock hair off of someone's head. Can knock literally hair can come out. It could come out a month later after bad news, because the blend of adrenaline when you get handed bad news just loves to knock off hair off of people's heads, getting them the thin hair and so forth and everything else. So it's important to understand too. And depression, mild bouts of depression, definitely from overexertion of adrenaline. So lots of adrenaline flooding the system, saturating, can cause mild bouts of depression, without a doubt. And libido. Women who lose libido, they lose their libido, means that they do have some adrenal fatigue, because that's where the libido loss is. It's in adrenal fatigue. Has nothing to do with menopause, has nothing to do with anything else. It's adrenal fatigue. And the reason why it's adrenal fatigue is because in women, what happens is that they have a mechanism built in their body that if the adrenals even drop down a little bit, slightly become underactive, or they become underactive and they're fluctuating back and forth. Either way, when there's an adrenal issue, what happens is the body will not want to procreate, because if pregnancy occurs, there has to be enough adrenaline in the 56 blends that I'm talking about to push out a baby, to go through labor. And if there's a hard labor and not an easy labor, what if there's a really difficult labor and it takes hours and hours? And before modern medicine can even intervene or help at all if there's a difficult labor. What if this is back 100 years ago, 200 years ago? The adrenals are built, and the body's built, a woman's body's built to make sure that if adrenals are even slightly underactive, even slightly, or even a little bit more than that, of course, libido disappears, so that pregnancy won't occur. It's like a safety mechanism, because you need that much adrenaline to push out a baby during delivery, during that time. And so with men, that's not there. There's, loss of libido in men is actually mental. It's actually mental, or it's a brain issue, or too many heavy metals, if they do have loss of libido. But men's adrenals could be totally trashed, totally rock bottom, totally wasted adrenals, and they'll still have plenty of libido. And that does happen. So that's something to understand. That information there is you're only going to hear it from spirit. And then glucose. Understand that because the liver breaks down because of adrenals are always running under stress, saturating the liver. When they saturate the liver loses glucose production, so it doesn't have the sugar to keep your blood sugar balanced. The liver starts to come a little hard. It starts to get pickled a little bit from all the stress and all the adrenaline, from all that bad news on and off over the years, not taking care of yourself, or not eating good, or not eating at all. That's bad for the adrenals. And then you're running on adrenaline. What happens is that the liver starts to take its toll and loses its glucose reserves, its glycogen reserves. And those glycogen reserves are there to release glucose into your bloodstream so you don't get hypoglycemia. See, but they're connected. It's connected to having adrenal issues. It's connected to having lots of stress in the adrenals. It's connected to having adrenal weaknesses. Because when adrenals get weak, they tend to be sporadic too, and they tend to launch all kinds of adrenaline at different times for different reasons, and the liver has to pay the price. So these are some of the things we have to be mindful about and open to when it comes down to adrenal fatigue. So we talked about neurological fatigue. We talked about the loss of libido. We talked about the hair loss. We talked about the neurotransmitters. We talked about all of that, some of the symptoms with adrenal fatigue. And we got to take care of our adrenals because we don't want adrenal fatigue and we don't want adrenal problems. But I'm just giving you the whole layout of what's really happening overall with everything. Giving you the entire layout. Really important. And the trouble concentrating. The trouble concentrating is from neurotransmitters burning out. And burning out from adrenaline, excess adrenaline, from all that fight or flight and everything around it. Let's talk about what to do. When it comes down to adrenals, we need some serious help in food. You got to be eating every hour and a half if you think you have adrenal problems, or you even have neurological fatigue that's viral. You got to be eating every hour and a half. And if you're really seriously problematic, then you got to be eating every hour, snacking and grazing. The 3 meals a day thing is disastrous for adrenals. I'm just being 100% honest. It's disastrous for adrenals, so you have to know that. That's really critical to know. So you have to eat every 2 hours minimum if you think you have adrenal fatigue. Every 2 hours. Different snacks. Let's cover it. And this doesn't matter if you're paleo, or if you're a meat eater, or if you're vegetarian, if you're vegan, if you're, just eat fish, whatever it is. I'm telling you right now what you have to do. You have to snack and graze. And one of the things you need is snacks, adrenal snacks, different kinds. Celery is critical. First of all, always do a celery juice once a day, every day, which helps restore adrenals. It helps restore neurotransmitters, damages to the neurotransmitters, dopamine, all of that. It helps restore our neurotransmitters, that celery juice, because of the mineral salts. It also helps restore the liver and the hydrochloric acid, and that's one other thing, adrenaline and adrenal issues. Okay, from when adrenals start overproducing, underproducing, being erratic, you're under stress, all these different things, the adrenaline lowers hydrochloric acid. It can burn out hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Your digestion system can weaken from that alone. So with all of this, we need the right foods. What I like to do is have celery sticks for snacks, not on their own. I like celery and dates. Dates and celery, potassium and sodium. Incredible for restoring adrenals. Dates and celery. Figs and celery sticks. That's a great one right there. Dried figs and celery sticks. I love it. Celery, almond butter. Okay, if you like almond butter. Celery and peanut butter. If you're a big peanut butter person, some people tell me, well, what about peanut butter? Because I love it. I go, okay, well, that's okay. Some really good, healthy peanut butter, if that's the case, with celery sticks. Sunflower seed butter with celery sticks. Handful of hemp seeds with celery sticks. A date, handful of hemp seeds and a celery stick. Apple slices with almond butter. Right, we said that. Eat hemp seeds with slices of apple and a celery stick. Cauliflower pieces, raw cauliflower pieces, cucumber, and an apple slice. Dates and cauliflower, but raw cauliflower and dates and a cucumber. All these different things you can do. Banana, dates. And if you don't even eat good and you just like the show and you just like listening to the show and you really can't really get the food going and all that, that's okay. Do one of these things. Try one of these things once a day. And because someone told us recently, said, I love this show, but it's hard for me to do the foods. And so I'm with you. We just, I'm totally there with you. I support you and I respect and I stand behind you 100%. Oranges with cilantro and butterleaf lettuce. It's a strange combination, but it works for the adrenals. Mangoes, figs, and celery. Pears and berries with lettuce, or pears and berries with mâché. Coconut water, and a handful of dried apricots, and a celery stick. Yeah. Sweet potato with kale. Maybe squeeze some lemon on there. Because, see, the reason why these are all designed like this from Spirit is they all have a combination of mineral salts from different aspects and different glucose combinations. And these are critical for restoring the 56 different blends in the adrenals. So the adrenals, with all the different blends it has to produce, undiscovered by research and science, there's these different food blends here, different food things. So it's not just like, okay, there's, the experts out there, there's diet experts, whatnot. Well, if the diet expert doesn't even know there's 56 different blends and they don't even know that exists, plus they don't even know, what combinations to use with that, then we're just playing with food. And that's all cute, and that's all fuzzy, and that's all fun, but it doesn't mean we're going to get 100% better, and I'm about getting better. So this is it. So these are the different combinations. Tangerine with some raspberries and some lettuce. There's a reason for that combination for the 56 different blends in the adrenals. Banana, grapes, and lettuce. You can do romaine lettuce. If you like green leaf, do green leaf. Romaine is higher in a mineral salt. So actually, romaine is pretty good for those adrenals. And the other lettuces are good, too, for different combinations with the 56 different blends. But the romaine is good. Apple, dates, collard green. Collard green. Okay? This is serious stuff. And, romaine lettuce and a date. Romaine lettuce, a date, and a banana. Cucumber, avocado, lime juice. So cucumber, avocado, lime juice. Watermelon and celery juice. Watermelon and a celery stick. The amount of mineral salts in the watermelon alone with the glucose combined, the phytochemicals combined with celery's mineral salts, restore the neurotransmitters burnt out by adrenaline issues, by adrenal issues. Helps with adrenal fatigue, helps pick up those adrenals and get them recovered. Okay, let's hit a few supplements while we got just a few minutes left. Let's do this. Let's hit a few supplements. Chromium, really good for the adrenals. Okay, ginseng is a great herb for the adrenals. Ashwagandha, definitely supportive for the adrenals, no question. All right, magnesium, it's a great one. Ester C, vitamin C. Ester C is incredible for adrenals. Vitamin C is like a miracle worker. That's why some of these fruits and vegetables help too, because it's the different vitamin C's, you guys. Different vitamin C in the tangerine, in the orange, in everything. Those different vitamin C's respond with the different 56 different blends coming out of the adrenals to help restore that, adrenal issue. So, Ester C, spirulina, amazing for adrenals. If you're doing the heavy metal detoxifying smoothie that I talk about that I have, that Spirit created, if you're doing that, then, hey, that alone is going to be helpful for adrenals too. Licorice root, one of the most powerful adrenal bringer-backers. Bringer-backers. It's not a real word. Cordyceps mushrooms helpful too. Barley grass juice powder. My favorite is the Vimergy. V as in Victor, Imergy. I love it. I take the stuff every single day. So barley grass juice powder from them. That's a great one. Lemon balm astragalus. Okay, lemon balm astragalus is good too. Rhodiola is okay. It's helpful. Okay, so it is. And then methylfolate, 5-MTHF. So 5-MTHF, methylfolate. Very helpful for adrenals. So these are the supplements that help. So, and you know what? It's a lot of supplements. I just rambled off. But what you do is you can take one at a time. Talk to your naturopath. Talk to your medical doctor. Talk to who supports you and stands behind you. And say, hey, look, check this out. What do you think? And they might be totally onto it and like it. And then you get some help. But understanding how the adrenals work, what you need to do for it, and to protect them is important. And understanding if your fatigue is more than you think is normal, now that you're learning, then you're dealing with also a little bit of adrenal fatigue, plus you're dealing with a viral fatigue, which is called neurofatigue, neurological fatigue, that Spirit and I have been teaching people about all the time. So, and that's important to know. And we want the adrenals strong no matter what. Even if you have neurological fatigue, we have to get the adrenals strong. It matters. So we can protect the liver, get the hydrochloric acid to keep it safe, make sure we're taking care of everything. And all of this really does count. One thing in the Life-Changing Foods book is if you think you have adrenal fatigue or viral fatigue, neurological fatigue, you can go in there and over the 50 fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, and wild foods listed, you can find which ones, which they help the adrenal fatigue. And if you take all of those ones and you make sure those are the ones you're eating enough of, incorporate in there, then you really get that adrenal boost. And same if it's neurological fatigue, because the foods are set up in there to help with like Epstein-Barr and that whole thing and the chronic fatigue. And you get the right direction. So when you get in there, check that out. But the bottom line is, Look, take one day at a time. Get some of these supplements in. If it's just vitamin C and it's just spirulina, and B12 is also really helpful too. Get the right kind of B12 that we talk about here only on the show, and get the right kind of B12 in you. That's really important. If you have any problems with knowing which kind of B12 it is, we have a supplements page now. So it's like a directory on the website, Medical Medium website, so you can get direction. And we don't sell the products. It's just there for a service for you guys. You don't have a fear of healing. You don't want to be sick. I stand behind you 100%. I love you dearly. Take one day at a time. You got my blessing. You got my support. You name it. I'm behind you. Love you dearly. And take care.